Hi, hello everyone. In today's installment of Random Guy Rambling on YouTube, I want to talk about Hollow Knight Silksong, the game that took 17 million years to come out. But let me tell ya, it was so fucking worth the wait. So I do know that it's been a bit since the game came out, and I'm a little behind on making the video, but I got caught up with other videos and doing other stuff. I do have somewhat of a life outside of making these videos. After playing Silksong and 100% in my save, I can say without a doubt in my empty little noggin that Silksong is an amazing sequel to Hollow Knight. It's honestly everything I could have asked for from a sequel. I was definitely a little nervous when the game was about to come out, mostly because if it didn't live up to the insane level of hype that it had been given from waiting 34 million years for it to release, then I and many others would be quite disappointed. Also, it had some quite big and round shoes to fill. It had to be as good and better than Hollow Knight. And that isn't easy, because Hollow Knight is perfect and amazing and would never hurt me, and is really cool and awesome. Luckily, the game was better. In like every way. It was better in practically every way you can think of. And I heard some people say that they thought Hollow Knight was better. And if you think that, then that's great. I completely understand if someone likes Hollow Knight over Silksong or vice versa. They're both fucking amazing. It's not really a situation where one is, overall better than the other. I think it could honestly go either way. And whichever one you choose, I think is perfectly fine. But personally, I liked Silksong more. Mostly because the movement and combat and bosses overall were just so much more fun than Hollow Knight to me. Everything was just so much smoother and faster. And I actually went back and played Hollow Knight before making this video. I decided to do a Pantheon 5 run because I was curious how far I could get into Pantheon 5 after months of not playing it. The last time I played Hollow Knight was in like March, and honestly it was weird to come back to Hollow Knight. It was noticeably less smooth than Silksong and much slower, but of course the game was still really fun. But it did help me support my thoughts that Silksong was better than Hollow Knight. I also thought Silksong was a lot harder than Hollow Knight, and contrary to what a lot of people were saying, I really liked how the game was way more difficult than Hollow Knight. I really enjoyed it. And to be honest, I steamrolled through basically the entirety of Pantheon 5 on my first attempt after months of not playing it. Only dying to Nightmare King Grim, mostly because I had kind of forgotten his moveset. Now the difficulty is something I do really want to sink my little teeth into. It was quite the hot topic when the game came out. A lot of people were not big fans of how difficult the game was. They didn't like the double damage or the much longer and more unforgiving runbacks and the overall more unforgiving nature of the game. But I actually really like this. That's because I'm a masochist. But only to an extent. There is a point where it just becomes annoying and not fun anymore. And Silksong does teeter on that line of annoying and stupid and actually difficult and fun multiple times. I will not lie about that. Bile water and its run back to Grohl is genuinely one of the worst things I've ever fucking experienced. Ever. In my entire life. And it will probably for the rest of my life be up there as a top 5 worst experience ever. So while I do agree to some extent that the game is annoyingly hard in some areas for no reason, as a whole, I wouldn't say that for the game. I really liked that the game was a big step up in difficulty, and made it more engaging for me. I found myself having to do a lot more in the boss fights to actually beat the boss, and it felt like there was so much more going on in the fights compared to Hollow Knight bosses. Not to say Hollow Knight bosses are bad, I just think Silksong did them better. I do think that Silksong suffered a lot like Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree did. People were really hyped, and then it came out, and it was too hard for people. It wasn't too hard. Personally, I would have preferred if they didn't make the bosses easier. Definitely cleaned up some of the visual clutter, but not nerf the bosses. I actually liked the difficulty that Shadow of the Erdtree was at when it first came out. I wanted a big step up in difficulty, and that's what I got. It felt like people just expected the game to be the same difficulty as the base game, which was the same thing with Silksong. It felt like so many people just expected it to be like Hollow Knight. But I was hoping it would be harder. I'm always looking for more of a challenge in video games, but a lot of people did not like that it was harder. And then a lot of people would say it was bad because it was too hard. Now, I'm not one to say to just get good or get better, but just because you're struggling on the bosses more than in Hollow Knight doesn't mean it's a bad game. It's not the game's fault. It's not the flaw that you are struggling. And there were definitely flaws in the game. Flaws that absolutely need to be worked out, and I think that those criticisms were absolutely justified. There were definitely some things wrong with Hollow Knight. Or sorry, Silksong. And if people pointed those out, then that's perfectly fine. Because yeah, there was some shit that was not very good in that game. But just because the game is too hard doesn't mean the game is bad. To be honest, it just kind of means you're not all that great at it. Anyway, enough of the negative, loser, boring shit. I want to talk about the cool, awesome, amazing stuff in Silksong. Now, I already mentioned the bosses and the movement, but another thing that Team Cherry did a great job at was depth in this fucking game. I really like the new systems for charms and the crest system. Now, to be honest, I didn't utilize it a lot. I mostly just ran with Reaper for most of the game, but I still found it to be a really cool system, and I'm glad it was in the game. Another thing that I really liked was I felt like you were way more involved with the NPCs in this game. Especially since there were quest boards across the map, so you got to do a lot more things with the NPCs. For one, there felt like there was a lot more side characters in this game, but not only that, it did feel like you interacted with them so much more than you ever did in Hollow Knight. Also, Silksong has Fleetopia, so it automatically beats Hollow Knight as a game tenfold easily. Fleetopia on top, my goat. Also, the fleas are amazing, and yes, I like them more than the grubs. You're wrong if you think differently. Now, there is one more thing I want to touch on before ending the video. It's the ending of the game. Both Act 2 and Act 3's ending. So spoilers if you haven't finished the game. Please remove your headphones and spin away from whatever you're watching as to not get spoiled. Go ahead. Spin away. Alright. I don't like the endings, and I'm just talking about the regular base Act 2 ending and the Act 3 ending. I feel like I was kind of let down. The final boss of Act 2 was really easy. The first ending I got was actually the cursed ending, so I had to beat the boss with no heals, no charms, and it still wasn't hard. I mean, the ending cutscene was pretty cool to look at and all that, but the actual boss was a super easy fight. I don't know if I'd call it boring, but it was very easy. I just expected something tougher after all the tough bosses throughout the game. Now, about the secret Act 3 ending. It was kind of a letdown. Unfortunately, I was expecting something grand for this true secret ending, but honestly it wasn't. Now, Lost Lace is a good fight, definitely, but it's a horrible final boss. Lace just isn't a final boss ever. She's just Hornet from Hollow Knight, but in Silksong, you fight her a couple times and that's it, but she is not a final boss. I was expecting to fight like an abyss-consumed Grandmother Silk, but instead she just screams at you the entire time. Now, it was really great to see the knight again. That made the entire game worth it, but still, the endings were pretty lackluster. That is one thing that I think Hollow Knight did better. Hollow Knight's final bosses really felt like final bosses. They felt more grand and intense enough to be final bosses, even though they aren't really that difficult. I mean, the Hollow Knight isn't that hard of a boss, but it still feels like a final boss if you catch my drift. And Absolute Radiance just really feels like a final boss. Like, that feels so much like a final boss, and they did a great job at that. Grandmother Silk and Lost Lace do not feel like final bosses, really. I suppose Grandmother Silk feels like a final boss. She's just not a very good final boss, and Lost Lace just doesn't feel like a final boss at all. So, if there's anything to take away from this video, it's that you should buy Silksong. It's fucking 20 bucks. Just buy it. You won't regret it. It's an amazing game, and personally, it's got my Game of the Year vote. I know I talked about some things that were pretty negative in this video, but I assure you, this game is peak. It's so fucking good. And again, it's 20 fucking bucks. Just play it, please. I think that's about all I really wanted to talk about in this video. Just kind of wanted to get a quick little video out talking about Silksong. So I do hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to do a double backflip and subscribe. I'll see you later.